I didn't feel that was where our people needed to be at. And we had enough images of us being drug dealers and, degenerates and unhumanly. I didn't want to contribute to that.
The first black star of the superhero genre, the man who paved the way for Marvel's billion-dollar era, vanished in silence. Wesley Snipes, a name that once made all of Hollywood tremble, suddenly fell from the pedestal of fame. For 2 decades, one question has lingered. Did Hollywood cast Wesley Snipes aside because he was too difficult, because he fell into legal trouble and spent 3 years in prison, or because he dared to challenge a hidden system steeped in racial bias? At 63, Snipes has finally broken his silence, and what he revealed not only shed light on his own personal tragedy, but also exposed the brutal dark side of Hollywood, a place where even a real-life superhero can be crushed. Born in Orlando and raised in the Bronx, Wesley Snipes was once a skinny kid obsessed with martial arts and the stage. From the New York High School of Performing Arts to Hollywood, he emerged with piercing eyes and an unmistakable presence. New Jack City, 1991 exploded like a bomb at the box office. Wesley Snipes transformed into Nino Brown, a cold, ruthless yet magnetic drug lord. That role not only launched Snipes into A-list stardom, but also turned him into a pop culture icon of the 1990s. 7 years later, Snipes etched his name into history with Blade 1998. For the first time in cinema, audiences around the world saw a black superhero lead an entire franchise on the big screen. With his long leather coat, icy gaze, and silver sword, Blade didn't just slay vampires, he saved Marvel itself from the brink of bankruptcy. With a budget of only $45 million, Blade grossed more than $131 million worldwide, a spectacular breakthrough. From that foundation, Marvel Studios found the confidence to gamble on X-Men 2000, Spider-Man 2002, and eventually launched the MCU with Iron Man 2008. In other words, without Snipes' Blade, there might never have been the billion-dollar Marvel we know today. This success placed Wesley Snipes alongside black legends of his era, like Will Smith and Denzel Washington. He became one of the very few black actors to dominate Hollywood's box office in the 1990s. He proved that a black action star could absolutely conquer the world. At that peak, Snipes wasn't just famous, he was wealthy. By the late 1990s, his net worth was estimated at $50 million with mansions, luxury cars, and his own production company. Snipes seemed to have it all: fame, power, and admiration. But then, in just the blink of an eye, everything collapsed. The peak of glory turned into a pit of tragedy, and Wesley Snipes began a downfall. No Hollywood script could have imagined. It devoured every ounce of fame he had ever earned. The 1991 incident, a fateful night when a black star became a suspect, Los Angeles one night in 1991. After wrapping a shoot, Wesley Snipes slid into the driver's seat of a brand new Mustang, a car provided by the production crew to get him around. He had no idea that just minutes later, his life would veer onto a path he could never turn back from. As the car rolled through the Los Angeles streets, red and blue police lights suddenly flared behind him. "Pull over! Get out of the car!" The loudspeaker blared into the night. Snipes slowed down, pulled over to the curb, still confused about what was happening. To his shock, the car was boxed in. In an instant, everything turned into a tense movie scene. Come to life. Orders barked, guns drawn. Snipes forced face down onto the freezing pavement, his wrists yanked back and cuffed. For Snipes, it was surreal, as if he was no longer Hollywood's rising star, but just another nameless suspect. Stunned, he asked himself, "What did I do wrong?" He hadn't broken a single traffic law, hadn't been speeding, hadn't given any reason to be treated this way. Only after an investigation did the truth surface. The Mustang he was driving had been reported stolen, but it was just a mistake. A crew member, unaware Snipes had borrowed the car, thought it had gone missing, and hastily called the police. From one small misunderstanding, the situation had escalated into a brutal takedown, stripping away the dignity of an actor just beginning to touch stardom. Snipes later described the experience as humiliating and painful. He believed he was treated harshly because of his skin color. The incident quickly became a symbol of the harsh divide between the bright lights of fame and the racial prejudice that still lingered in America in the early 90s. Public opinion erupted. Many rallied behind Snipes, seeing him as a victim of driving while black. Others questioned whether it was just an accident or a deliberate move to smear a rising black star. Whatever the truth, that 1991 shock was the first crack in the statue called Wesley Snipes. From then on, his path forward would never be smooth again, but shadowed by storms, suspicions, and prejudice. Even after the 1991 blow, Wesley Snipes rose back strong. He refused to let one incident sink his career, pressing ahead with a string of hit action roles. The pinnacle came with Blade 1998 and Blade 2 2002, two blockbusters that not only cemented Snipes' star power, but also rescued Marvel from the edge of bankruptcy. But when all eyes turned to the third installment, Blade Trinity 2004, the film that was supposed to be Snipes' crowning glory instead spiraled into a behind-the-scenes nightmare. The tense battle on the Blade Trinity set 2005. After two global hits, Blade 1998 grossed $131 million, and Blade the 2 2002 over $155 million worldwide. Wesley Snipes did not just become the first black superhero to dominate the box office, he was regarded as the uncrowned king of the franchise. Everyone believed Blade Trinity would be the crowning achievement of his career, the explosion that would raise Snipes to immortal status. Fans around the world eagerly awaited the finale. But sadly, reality was the exact opposite. When New Line Cinema chose David S. Goyer, the writer of the first two films, to direct, conflicts erupted. Snipes felt the script had strayed from the spirit of Blade. They reduced his role, while supporting characters played by Ryan Reynolds and Jessica Biel were pushed to the forefront. After the film's release, Snipes sued New Line Goyer and related parties for more than $5 million. He claimed the studio breached contractual terms, silenced his creative voice, and even cut his pay. The clashes went beyond creative disputes. According to Snipes director David S. Goyer, made remarks with negative racial overtones, making an already tense set even more suffocating. Worse, a crew member reportedly wore a t-shirt with a negative slogan and faced no consequences, as if such behavior was being tolerated amid the chaos. When Michael Jai White, a close friend and longtime colleague, visited the set, he could not hide his anger. White later recounted, "The atmosphere was so heavy, you could feel it. They were trying to steal Blade away from Wesley. The studio fights back. Faced with Snipes' accusations, New Line refused to stay silent. Hollywood has a powerful weapon: the media. Immediately, tabloids and entertainment outlets filled with unfavorable stories. Wesley Snipes refused to engage with the production, answering only when people addressed him as Blade. Some even claimed he left notes signed Blade instead of speaking directly. These anecdotes quickly spread across tabloids and talk shows, shaping a public image of a star who was difficult and uncooperative. Fueling the fire, comedian Patton Oswalt, who was on the film, shared in a 2012 behind-the-scenes interview that he witnessed Snipes acting unusually. He wouldn't come out of his trailer, and he would smoke weed all day. He only answered to Blade, and he would sign his notes as Blade. While told with a humorous tone, the story became indirect evidence reinforcing the negative image the studio wanted to portray. Even worse rumors circulated that he had tried to choke the director. Snipes fired back bluntly in The Guardian. "Let me tell you one thing. If I had tried to strangle David Goyer, you probably wouldn't be talking to me now. A black guy with muscles strangling the director of a movie is going to jail, I guarantee you." That response not only denied the rumor, but also pointed directly at the hidden prejudice in Hollywood. When conflict arises, the public is quick to assume the black man is at fault. The result? When Blade lost its soul, Blade Trinity hit theaters in December 2004, grossing around $132 million worldwide on a $65 million budget. The numbers covered costs, but fell far short of expectations compared to the first two films, both of which had made major waves. Critics panned it. Rotten Tomatoes gave it just 25%, Metacritic 38 out of 100. Reviews slammed the disjointed script, the overuse of supporting characters like Hannibal King, Ryan Reynolds, and Abigail Whistler, Jessica Biel, while Blade, the very soul of the franchise, was reduced to a faint shadow. For fans, the disappointment cut even deeper. Blade had once been the first black superhero to lead a successful franchise. But in Part 3, instead of a triumphant finale, audiences watched a weakened Blade pushed to the sidelines of his own story. The bitterest consequence came. Off-screen, Snipes was no longer remembered as the man who saved Marvel, but branded as difficult to work with. In Hollywood, that label is as good as a life sentence. Studios grew wary. Directors hesitated. From the hero who opened the door for Marvel, Snipes began to slide into the most difficult stretch of his career. And just as his career was staggering, another crushing blow landed. This time not from a movie set, but from the United States government. The IRS. The tax trial. Case of the century. 2006-2010. October 2006 shook Hollywood. The man who once wielded a silver sword to slay vampires on screen was now being hunted by the US government. The IRS announced charges Wesley Snipes was accused of tax fraud and failing to pay more than $7 million in taxes. The indictment spelled it out for 3 consecutive years, 1999, 2001 during the height of Blade and other blockbusters that made him a millionaire. Snipes never filed federal income taxes. Worse, he was accused of submitting false refund claims. 2 shady figures were named alongside him: Douglas P. Rosile, an accountant who had already lost his license, and Eddie Ray Khan, leader of the group American Rights Litigators, notorious for tax evasion schemes. Why only me? Amid the legal storm, Snipes kept asking why were all 3 named, but only he was dragged into criminal trial, while Rosile and Khan, both white, escaped the harshest penalties. He admitted bitterly to the press, "I thought it was rather strange to be a client and be lumped in with the conspirators. But stranger things have happened." For Snipes, this was not just a tax case. It was living proof of systemic injustice, where in a biased system, the black man often bore the heaviest consequences. The trial and sentence, a historic fall. After 2 years of grueling investigation in April 2008, a federal court in Florida found Snipes guilty on 3 misdemeanor counts of failing to file taxes. Each count carried up to 1 year. The total 3 years in prison. His destination, the federal prison in McKean, Pennsylvania. This wasn't just a sentence. It was a seismic shock. In Hollywood history, never before had an A-list star, let alone Marvel's pioneering black superhero, been sent straight to prison over taxes. Media frenzy, case of the century. The American press dove in, turning the trial into a live TV spectacle. Headlines screamed, "The biggest tax trial in Hollywood history." The world no longer saw Wesley Snipes the Blade hero. Instead, they saw the image of a tax criminal everyone now knew by name. Snipes could only fire back bitterly. "I make movies. I'm not saving the world. I haven't cured cancer." And yet, this was the biggest trial in history. When the spotlight went dark, this sentence was the final blow. From the superstar who once paved the way for Marvel's superhero era, Wesley Snipes was now wearing a federal prison uniform. His reputation collapsed. Studios turned their backs. Big scripts no longer knocked at his door. In Hollywood's eyes, he wasn't the immortal Blade anymore, just a fallen star tangled in the law. 3 years in prison officially froze Snipes' career and turned his tax trial into the nightmare dubbed the case of the century. Inside prison, Snipes received no special treatment. He was housed with regular inmates and assigned mandatory labor from cleaning to prison duties. Still, reports said he maintained a calm attitude, never caused trouble, and even earned respect from fellow prisoners for his discipline and composure. For Snipes, those 3 years were not just physical punishment, but also a mental battle. He read books, trained, and even wrote scripts behind bars. In a later interview, he admitted, "I hope I came out a better person." On April 2nd in 2013, Snipes was released after serving 2 years and 4 months. But when he stepped out of McKean Federal Prison, Hollywood had changed. The superhero world now belonged to Marvel Studios and Disney, with Iron Man, Captain America, and the Avengers. Meanwhile, Wesley Snipes' name was frozen in the past, tied forever to 2 words: tax evasion. After his career froze under the weight of scandal, Wesley Snipes seemed poised for a comeback when Hollywood began rebooting projects tied to his name. But instead of grabbing the lifeline, Snipes pushed it away, turning down the New Jack City reboot 2019. In 2019, Warner Brothers announced a reboot of New Jack City, the film that had made Snipes a breakout star in 1991 as Nino Brown, the ruthless yet magnetic drug lord. For audiences, it was exciting news. Maybe the icon could live again. But then Snipes dropped a bombshell of his own. He crushed the hopes with a cold statement: "I'm not associated with it." I have nothing to do with it at all. I told them no. A refusal that became a declaration. Snipes wasn't just turning down a role. He was rejecting a narrative Hollywood had recycled for decades. Black men equated with crime drugs gangs. In interviews, he was blunt. I think some things should be left alone. We've had enough images of us being drug dealers and degenerates. I didn't want to contribute to that. This was no longer a career decision. It was an artistic declaration. Snipes chose to walk away from the table rather than swallow the same toxic stereotypes, hero or hard to handle. To many producers, this decision only cemented the label Snipes had carried since Blade Trinity, difficult to work with. A star who dares to turn down $1 million reboot. In Hollywood, that's unforgivable. But to Black audiences and those who care about representation, Snipes' action was a badge of honor. He was willing to lose another opportunity to protect artistic dignity and shield the next generation from recycled harmful portrayals. Once again, Wesley Snipes proved he wasn't just an action star. He was a man willing to stand against the system. And in the past, Wesley Snipes also made a controversial statement that set an entire community on fire. The Storm. Over Black Women, 1997. In 1997, Wesley Snipes was one of the brightest black stars in Hollywood. At the time, he was dating an Asian woman, and that relationship became the excuse for a series of sensitive questions during an interview with Ebony magazine. He described Black women as argumentative, hard to please, always wanting to be in control, then compared them unfavorably to women of other races, whom he claimed were softer, more agreeable. He said, "I say to Black women brothers who are successful, usually it's been at a great expense unseen by the camera's eye. I want to come home, and I don't want to argue. I want to be pleasing. A successful man doesn't want to come home to someone who's going to be mean and aggravating and unkind. So it's very natural that he's going to turn to some place that's more compassionate." Those words, printed in a magazine long regarded as the voice of Black America, felt like a knife straight into the hearts of the women who had supported him. From idol to betrayer. As soon as the interview was published, backlash erupted. Many Black women saw Snipes as a traitor. While they had always lifted him up, celebrating him as one of the rare Black success stories in Hollywood, he used his influence to reinforce the very stereotypes they had fought against for decades. Reports from that period documented the public outrage. Letters to the editor community forums and even talk shows slammed Snipes relentlessly. The prevailing sentiment was one of betrayal. Instead of defending them, he had handed ammunition to the very prejudices Black women were still battling. Even in the social media age years later, the wound remained. A widely shared comment once put it bluntly: quick to criticize Black women, but quick to play the race card when he's in trouble. Unlike his legal scandals, this statement became a scar on Snipes' personal image. It followed him for years, resurfacing whenever his name returned to the press. For many Black women, he was no longer the hero on screen, but the man who once turned his back on the very community that had lifted him to the top. Snipes in exile. Was he really blacklisted by Hollywood after Blade Trinity and the tax trial of the century? Wesley Snipes almost disappeared from blockbuster projects. Many fans believed he had been blacklisted, that no one dared to hire him. The truth was harsher. In modern Hollywood, there's no official blacklist, but it exists as a silent ban. A few bad headlines, a court case, repeated gossip, and the studios quietly back away. For Snipes, everything came crashing down. At once, studios leaked rumors that he was difficult to work with. The lawsuit with New Line scared investors. The 3-year tax sentence branded him as a fallen star with a criminal record. His comments about Black women left scars with his core fan base. And most importantly, Snipes himself rejected projects he believed went against his artistic values. The result was a long silence. There was no official ban, but no major studio dared to gamble on him. So the fairest answer is this: Snipes wasn't blacklisted in the literal sense, but his career was strangled by a mix of prejudiced media narratives and his own uncompromising choices. The bigger picture: Hollywood and racial bias. The story of Wesley Snipes wasn't just a personal tragedy. It mirrored a grim reality in Hollywood. Black artists are often the easiest to blame, the quickest to be misrepresented, and the first to lose opportunities over a rumor. In an industry built on the formula of profit safety, Hollywood has always preferred yes-men actors, who quietly accept roles, nod at scripts, and don't resist stereotypes. Anyone who dares to speak out to sue or simply demand fairness risks being shut out of the game. Snipes became living proof. The contrast is clear when you look at his peers. Denzel Washington, a master at choosing roles, carefully balanced art and Hollywood politics. He rarely got pulled into controversies, and that wisdom allowed him to remain untouchable. Samuel L. Jackson was versatile, saying yes to huge commercial projects from Star Wars to the MCU. He became a global icon by playing the game and then bending the rules when it suited him. Tyler Perry built an empire by blending compromise with community storytelling, though he too faced criticism for reinforcing negative stereotypes. Chris Rock publicly criticized Hollywood's treatment of black artists, but did it through comedy, turning protest into art, a less confrontational approach with the studios. Wesley Snipes, on the other hand, chose direct confrontation, suing studios, calling out directors, rejecting recycled stereotypes. And it was precisely this refusal to play nice that cost him dearly. What's remarkable is that even as his career froze, Snipes never abandoned his principles. He dared to say no to roles that recycled toxic images. He dared to call out injustice, even knowing it could end his opportunities. And for that reason, his legacy goes beyond movies. It stands as a reminder in an industry that bends black artists into molds. There are still those who accept losing the spotlight to keep their dignity and their truth. For nearly 2 decades, Wesley Snipes' name echoed only in the memories of fans. But then in mid-2024, the film world exploded when he suddenly appeared in a brand new blockbuster. The Unexpected Comeback, 2024, on July 22, 2024 at the David H. Koch Theater in New York. Deadpool and Wolverine had its global premiere. Just 3 days later, on July 26, 2024, the film opened widely in the US after storming theaters across Europe and Asia the day before. And in those packed theaters, audiences witnessed one of Marvel's historic moments, Wesley Snipes' shocking return as Blade. Just a few seconds of cameo, a shadow, a flash of a silver sword, and then that familiar face appeared. But that was all it took to make theaters erupt. The crowd jumped to their feet, the roar echoing, "Blade is back." On social media, the hashtag #BladeIsBack shot straight to the top of global trending. Marvel fans called it the most unexpected gift of the decade. For those who grew up with Blade 1998, it was like rewinding time to the first black superhero who opened the door to the modern superhero era. Beyond the hype, the moment was historic. Guinness World Records officially recognized 2 milestones. The longest career for a Marvel live-action character, spanning more than 25 years from Blade 1998 to Deadpool and Wolverine 2024. And the longest gap between appearances, proof of Blade's immortal legacy and Snipes' enduring presence. That moment was more than just a cameo. It was a reminder to Hollywood: you can sideline a star, bury him under scandal and prejudice, but you cannot erase the symbol he left behind. And with this brief yet blazing return, Wesley Snipes proved one thing: Blade is not just a role. It is a piece of pop culture history, a cinematic legacy Hollywood cannot deny. After all the storms, Wesley Snipes now lives a life far different from the spotlight of his past. At 63, he no longer appears frequently on screen, but still has the power to make the entire film world take notice whenever the name Blade is called. Wesley Snipes' life today. Snipes married Korean painter Nakyoung Nikki Park in 2003. Their marriage, now spanning more than 2 decades, has been his safe harbor after years of turmoil. The couple has 4 children together, 3 sons and 1 daughter, and along with Jelani, his first son from his marriage to April Dubois. Snipes is now the father of 5. Though once a Hollywood action superstar, Snipes has chosen to keep his private life quiet. His wife and children rarely appear in public, but from the little he shares, it's clear that family is where he found balance after chaos. A man who once fell before the law now finds meaning in being a father and a husband. Wealth and money, numbers in dispute. At his peak with Blade and other 1990s blockbusters, Wesley Snipes was worth an estimated $50 million. He was among the very few black stars who could stand alongside Will Smith and Denzel Washington in box office power. But after the tax trial of the century and years of decline, his financial picture became a mystery. Public estimates today clash completely. Some outlets like Coming Soon estimate Snipes' net worth at around $10 million, suggesting he's partially rebuilt after the storm. But sites like Celebrity Net Worth list him at roughly negative $9 million, reflecting years of debt and legal costs. There is no official number for Snipes' current fortune. Only one fact is certain: from a box office millionaire, he endured a financial freefall few stars have ever faced, passing the sword to a new generation. When Marvel announced that Mahershala Ali would become the new Blade, many fans feared Snipes would lash out. After all, Blade was the role that defined his entire career. But instead, he responded with generosity. He's got a big job on his hands. But I believe Mahershala will deliver a Blade that's different, one that fits this new generation. That statement wasn't just support for his successor. It was also Snipes' way of affirming that he understood his role, he had built the foundation. And now that legacy would be carried forward. Snipes was more candid than ever. Hollywood rewards obedience and punishes honesty. He didn't deny his personal mistakes, but he stressed that his career was derailed not only by taxes or rumors, but because he dared to challenge a hidden system steeped in bias. An icon who no longer needs to prove himself. At 63, Snipes has passed the point of having to prove anything. He is no longer the difficult action star the studios painted him to be, nor just the tax prisoner the media mocked him as. He is living proof of a bitter yet noble lesson. Fame can vanish, money can disappear, but true legacy lies in the courage to preserve dignity and speak the truth, even when all of Hollywood turns its back.